City Matters.
Hello, this is Bernie Furshpan on HMTV. I'm your host of Raised by Survivors, right here at the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center. One of our favorite volunteers here is an incredible individual who I really love. And we've become good friends. And we have a lot in common because we both grew up in Brooklyn. Terry Kaplan, thank you so much for making the time to join us.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure.
Mine too.
You've had a lot of names.
I have a lot of names.
As you said, Terèse.
Terèse.
It's a French name.
It's French.
Why
Terèse.
French? What's the French from?
So I was born in Paris.
You were born in Paris?
Yes. And they wanted to name, this is what my mother said, they wanted to name me Toby. But the nuns in the hospital said you cannot name a French girl with black eyes Toby.
Why not?
I guess they felt it just wasn't the right name for a French girl. So
It has to do with the color of the eyes?
My parents, I guess my mom agreed, and they named me Terèse with 2 accent marks.
Yeah.
Like Saint Terèse.
Okay. So you were born in Paris. When did you end up here in the United States?
I was about 3.5 when we came in 54, 55.
You landed in Brooklyn?
We landed in the city at the HIAS. Through the HIAS, my first Thanksgiving. I have a picture of it. I have to show you one day. It's
Okay.
My brother is holding me. He's 5.5 years older than me, and he's pointing to the turkey and showing me all the vegetables and the turkey. There were a whole bunch of kids that were on this boat.
Right.
That when we came to America.
Yeah.
So we lived in, I guess, through the HIAS somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't really know. And then we went to North Carolina, Greensboro.
Wow.
So my mother found out one of her brothers was alive, and he had remarried and had already had a child again. And so he lived there. So we went there. But my father was a tailor, and he couldn't find a job. So he left us in Greensboro, or it could have had a Southern accent. And he went back to New York, and he got a job, and he sent for us. And he found us an apartment on Amboy Street between Sutter and Pitkin in Brownsville. And that's where we lived for a number of years. I remember going to Belmont Avenue to the live chicken farms with my mother.
And chicken farms?
She would pick the chicken.
In Brooklyn?
In Brooklyn, in Brownsville, and they would flock off the feathers and cut the head off. And Oy is right.
Right in front of you.
But I also grew up with...
What do they call it? A capara?
I don't know. It was pretty funny.
You grew up in my neighborhood in Canarsie, didn't you?
Well, I didn't grow up in Canarsie, but I did live there after a while. But I spent a lot of time there. I had cousins there. I went to Midwood High School.
Okay. So
and then we moved to Canarsie.
We lived in the same neighborhood.
Same neighborhood.
Brooklyn. You know,
Brooklyn,
you can take the person out of
Brooklyn. I always
Brooklyn,
say that.
but you really can't take the Brooklyn. And there's a little bit of a Yiddishkeit, I would say, that we both share.
I agree.
Once in a while, you'll throw me a Yiddish word, and I'll throw you a Yiddish word. It's kind of natural.
It is. It comes naturally. Well, I'm fluent in Yiddish, so when someone speaks Yiddish, I hear it in English in my head.
What are some common things that we throw at each other? Like
sei gesund.
Sei gesund? That's, well, how do you say gesinnt or gesund?
Well, I grew up saying gesinnt.
Right.
But some people say gesund.
Yeah, they say gesund.
Right.
Which means...
Hakminish Kenchainik.
I love that one.
Right.
Hakminish Kenchainik means don't hack, don't break my china. My
tea kettle, actually. A chinik was a tea kettle.
Yeah. Don't bang on my china because you're going to break it.
How about Guy Kloppen Cup of the Wand? Go bang your head against the wall.
This I didn't know. Guy Kloppen
Cup of the Wand.
Off the Wand. Off the wall.
Right.
Go bang your head against the wall.
Exactly. That was something mothers would say when kids complained they had nothing to do.
Right.
Guy Kloppen Cup.
I love some of the things my mom used to say, like verkakt.
Oh, that's of course verkakt.
Everybody says verkakt.
Everybody says verkakt.
Verklempt.
If
it starts with an FA.
Right. It's true.
It's usually a funny word.
It is. It's true.
Verstopt. Verstopte Kop.
Verdrehte Kop. Verdrehte Kop. Mischige. You know, there's all kinds of words that everybody, I think, uses today that aren't necessarily, they don't have to be Yiddish speakers.
They don't have to be. And this is what's so interesting about that, because it was kind of incorporated into American culture, some of these terms.
In certain places, like Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn, but even on TV. Like, where you schlepping that thing?
Oh, that's true now, yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
Don't be a schmegege.
Right.
But schlep you hear a lot.
Schlemiel.
Or, I'm going to have a bagel with a schmear. You see that in movies all the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You don't have to be Jewish to know what a schmear is.
Not at all. You don't have to be Jewish to know any of that stuff. I think it's pretty common, those words that people use, those expressions.
I would say.
Yeah.
Well, I enjoyed growing up in Brooklyn. You were raised by survivors.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about your parents.
Okay.
Both mine survived the war. My dad lost his entire family.
Mm-hmm.
He's the only one that came out alive from 8 people.
So awful.
And that's why, we do what we do. We have a moral obligation.
Right. I was very fortunate, though. Both of my parents wound up with 2 other siblings that survived.
Mm-hmm.
So
both of them.
Both.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about their stories, just kind of touch the surface.
So they were from Kraśnik in Poland.
Kraśnik,
near Lublin.
Okay.
And my mother, I think, was 16 in 39. My dad was, I think, 22, maybe. Mm-hmm. Anyway, my mother they knew each other because she lived like in a dorf, my father called it, I remember him saying, which was like, I don't even know what, of a smaller town. Kraśnik was a city, so she was in like a suburb, I guess, of the city. Mm-hmm. But she had relatives in Kraśnik, and one of her sisters married and lived in Kraśnik, so they kind of knew everybody. They were landsman, let's put it that way.
Right.
And then the war came, and I don't even remember exactly how it goes. I think she said they went into the forest first, but then it was getting cold. They were running out of food, and the Nazis were, on the loudspeakers, we have food, we have clothes, come to the ghetto, blah, blah, blah.
For real? Is that what they were doing?
That's what my mother always said.
Oh, my goodness. I didn't know that.
Come to the ghetto, you'll have food, you'll have clothing, blah, blah, blah.
Don't be afraid of us, kind of a thing.
Right. We're not going to hurt you, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think that they did. And then I'm not sure where they were at this point. Her father actually had come to America. And he sent for the mother and one child, but the mother wouldn't leave all the other kids. So that was that. But then I think, and my dad also, I'm not really sure they were in a lot of different camps, that much I know. But first they were in, I think, what they said up there, the ghetto, and then Budzyń. Did you ever hear of Budzyń?
No.
Camp, one of those work camps. My father was in Gross-Rosen, my Danek. And anyway, she was in a few also. I remember her saying that in the first camp, my father was on the men's side, and he came to the fence and he wanted to give her bread, and she wouldn't take it. She said, no, give it to your brother, because his younger brother was there with him.
Right.
So I guess he liked her by then. I don't know. Anyway, and then she wound up, after that, I think after the first or second camp, they didn't see one another anymore. She wound up in one of the camps in Auschwitz, which is this number that I wear. That was her tattoo. He wound up in Płaszów with Amon, Göth, and that's where he wound up on Schindler's List.
Oh.
He was there for, I think, 7 months. And, they didn't have a crematorium in Płaszów, I don't think.
What was the camp that surrounded Schindler's factory?
You know what? That was Płaszów where they first
Płaszów.
started, like in the movie, yeah. And that's where he was shooting the people off his porch, his balcony, whatever, yeah. Right. So my father wound up there. I think he was on a transport with 500 other young men in their 20s. And so they had to dig up the remains because the Russians were advancing. So they had to, I remember hearing this because growing up, I remember I'd wake up in the morning sometimes and I'd be like, why was Daddy's screaming? I heard him, and my mother would say, no, it must have been you. You probably had a nightmare. Because they didn't talk about it to me. I only heard because I was a yenta, and I listened when they would get together with their friends. So I didn't know all that much, but I knew enough. And then from Płaszów, somehow he got on that list, number 10. I gave Donna a copy of the list. I had copies of it.
Amazing.
Donna has it.
Yes.
Which she said she couldn't find on the computer anywhere.
Really?
I had a few copies.
One would think that it's available.
You would think. Well, the original now is in
the
Yad
book, at least.
Vashem.
No?
No.
Okay.
The original's in Yad Vashem behind closed glass encased. But I have copies which I shared with Donna. I told her she could keep it for the museum, for the archives. So he wound up being number 10. I don't even know how
That's
he got
amazing.
on that list. I don't think he paid anybody off, obviously. He had nothing. And then he wound up going with the 1100 to Czechoslovakia. And I think I don't know what kind of factory. I think he made like what? Schindler, the utensils, pots, pans, the fabrik. I don't remember the fabrik.
Fabrik.
Right.
Okay.
Factory.
Yeah.
But he said, my father always said, in fact, Spielberg's crew had contacted my dad when they were planning this movie. He was not interested in getting involved, except that he did go over there one day to meet with a bunch of them with a friend of his who wanted to be involved.
Right.
So he was helping his friend out, giving him information.
Yep.
And my mother also wound up in, so she said that she wasn't in Auschwitz that long, but they shaved them, they tattooed them. And every day they would call appel, the roll call in the morning. They'd stand there for hours. And she said every day they thought they were marching them to the gas chamber. And then one day they finally did tell them to march, but they took them to the train station and they sent them to Czechoslovakia to a munitions camp.
So they knew about the gas chamber? Was it something that they heard, or they actually knew that there was a potential that they're going to die?
The way that I know that is because when I wanted to move my parents from Canarsie, and they didn't need the house, and I had remarried and moved out to the South Shore. So we looked at some like condos in Oceanside, and the minute we pulled up there, my father said, "I'm not living here. I've not looking at smokestacks because it's down by the dumps in Oceanside."
Yeah, they knew what those smokestacks were.
They knew. My mother's mother, they shot in front of her.
Did they try to resist at all? Were there groups that tried to resist, to fight back?
I'm not sure. I don't think my mother did. My mother always wanted to die.
She wanted to die.
Because the last words her mother said to her when they split them up was, "Tochter shivi lost mech ibe." That translated means, "Daughter, how are you leaving me?"
Oh my God, that's awful.
So I heard that growing up all my life.
Oh, that's awful.
Because every time something went wrong.
Do you think that they were too weak to fight back? I mean, they were starved.
They were starved. They were starved, I think. I don't know what my mother weighed when she came out.
They lost hope.
70 pounds, maybe?
They lost hope.
Yeah. But my mother didn't care.
70 pounds.
I think that's what she weighed. But she was little anyway, but still.
It's still.
My mother didn't care about surviving. She said she didn't even eat the potato peels that other girls in her bunk were eating out of the garbage because she didn't care. Right. She didn't know if anybody was alive, and she didn't care.
What was it like growing up with your parents? What do you remember? I mean, what impacted you the most in terms of, values that you learned from them?
Well,
things like that. What did you get from them?
I learned that the children are the most important things in the world, the Kinder. And you cannot eat enough as far as they were concerned. I mean, when I was in elementary school, I walked to school 2 blocks away. I came home for lunch. I had fresh baby lamb chops, fresh vegetables, mashed potatoes. My American friends were eating peanut butter, and I had never heard of it before.
Wow, your mother was a good cook.
I didn't even taste peanut butter till I was in my 20s. It was never in my house. Bakery, cake, nothing. So what I remember is a lot of sadness. Holidays were not fun. My mother was always crying.
That's sad.
The only funny thing I remember about the Passover and Rosh Hashanah was I had pets. She would go and buy whitefish and carp, and they would swim in our bathtub for 3 days.
No kidding.
We had 1 bathroom.
And she put the carp in there?
And the carp and the whitefish. And every night when we had a shower, they would go into the sink.
You're bringing back some memories that I didn't even know I had. That sounds so familiar to me.
Yeah, and she did it
Because I remember
to
the
the
smell
very
of
end.
it. Do you remember the smell?
I do.
And I think my mother may have
And
done
I
that.
would be like, to make sure you kill them when I'm in school, because
Right.
she'd hack that head off.
Hack them in the
Yeah.
Schindler. Hack 'em in the Schindler.
Those were my pets.
yeah. Those were your pets for a couple of days,
3 days, twice a year.
and they were delicious pets.
They were, and then I would.
My mother knew how to make
My mother.
gefilte fish like nobody's business. Now you buy gefilte fish in a jar.
I would never even taste it.
I don't know what it's made out of, cardboard, whatever.
Never.
But it's just.
I mean, my mother.
But
would
it's just a filling.
Slice it and take out the inside.
But it's just a filling.
It's horrible.
My mother used to do it with, right? She would empty out the fish.
Exactly, and you filled it with the skin and the
word
head.
gefilled means to fill.
Right. The
So
head
it's-
was the best part. I loved that part.
I didn't eat that part. My dad would eat it.
I still love a whole fish when I go out to a seafood restaurant.
So my wife and I, we always get a full, a whole branzino.
Branzino. I love branzino.
Me
You want
too.
good branzino, you have to go to Coney Island.
Really, Coney Island.
This rest
Actually, if you want a good branzino, you have to go to Greece.
Well, yeah, I had it there when I was in Greece.
That's, you get it fresh.
Yes, but this restaurant also, they used to be in Sheepshead
You'll tell me
Bay.
about it after the show.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it.
Amazing.
I love food.
Me too.
And growing up with my parents, I ate a lot of Polish food because
I
that's
did
what my mother knew.
The cucumber soup, right?
And I told my mom, I want American food. And you know what she got? Not lamb chops like you. You're so lucky because I love lamb chops. She got shake and bake. So she threw chicken inside of a little bag.
Yeah, and my mother
And
now.
she wasn't a great
My mother was
cook,
a
but
very
she
good
really,
cook.
over the many years, she got better and better.
Right.
And when she got older, she was a terrific cook.
Did you ever eat picha?
My mother loved making pacha for my dad. To me, it smelled like a dead body.
Okay.
Garlic and calf hoof.
egg.
It's the calf hoofs.
Yes.
It sounds like a witch's brew.
It does. It sounds. Now when I think about eating it, it's disgusting.
It's disgusting.
But I love it.
But when you know what, this is what they knew. This is what they ate. They assimilated to the Polish culture.
Yes.
Wherever Jews lived, they assimilated to
In
the.
fact, when we came to America, they became kosher. In Paris, they weren't.
You're kidding.
Because
why
in
did they become kosher?
Because my aunts were here, were kosher, and they wouldn't eat at
I
our
see.
house. So, but my father would go to Brighton, I remember, and buy me kielbasa. Good
My
Polish
dad
kielbasa.
loved his kielbasa.
I loved it.
He would buy it on Nostrand Avenue near Lord's Bakery.
Oh, I remember Lord's. Oh my God.
Who doesn't remember? He bought the best challah there.
Lord's was the best.
The best challah, and there was a kielbasa store next
I don't know
door.
about that, but it
and
was
that's where
so
he got.
good. Ugh.
That's where I learned about kielbasa. My mother would slice up the kielbasa
My mother was
and
mad
throw
because
it
it
into
wasn't
the
kosher.
scrambled eggs.
So she would keep it wrapped in the bag, and I would take a chunk with the pice of rye bread.
You're making me drool here.
I
I'm gonna
know.
make this microphone wet.
It's delicious.
I tell you, there's some things that I really did enjoy. Mm-hmm. It was, the Polish food.
My brother hated it.
Chopped liver's Polish.
Yes. My brother would not eat it. She had to make him hamburgers
Really?
and fresh French fries. He was
He was an all-American
I was
kid.
the one that was always needed to take care of my parents
Mm-hmm.
and protect them. My brother wanted nothing to do with Judaism. He still doesn't. So we are the typical, if you ever read Helen Epstein's book, Children of the Holocaust,
I
an
did not. I
old
know
book.
about it.
we're in there. He's in there and I'm in there. We are the typical, the one who wants to protect them, take care of them, and be Jewish, and the other one who wants nothing to do with it. Like he was ashamed that they didn't speak English well, and
I don't know where
all
I
this
stood with
stuff.
all of that. Yeah, I was maybe a little ashamed that my parents couldn't. They spoke such
Right.
a broken English.
very broken.
And I was always correcting them because I wanted them to sound, elegant. American.
Right, I know.
But
I hated my
but
American
I think
friends.
as I grew older, I appreciated more about
Yeah.
their past
Yeah.
and history.
My best friend also comes from survivors. She lived across the street. We were in kindergarten through 8th grade together. So on the street, we had another friend. She was American. We hated her. She had grandparents, and they lived on the same block. Like, hello, and they gave her 3 cents every day after lunch to stop at Heshy's candy store. Like, who has grandparents? Did you have grandparents?
I had grandparents on my mother's side, but they died when I was very young. But I had no grandparents on my dad's side.
Right. I had
only
none
have-
on any side.
I have just one photograph of my grandmother on my father's side. That's the only photograph I have of my family. I have no photographs of my grandfather, his 4-year-old brother who was killed, his sister, who he loved, his sister Hannah. Chanala, and his other brothers, you know, and no photographs of anybody.
I have some only because one of my mother's uncles was his mother's brother. He came to America.
And he had photographs.
So he brought photos.
Yeah.
So then he gave them to my mother.
I'm not that lucky. I would like to know what they look like.
Yeah,
I would
in
pay
fact-
anything to have 5 minutes with my grandmother just to have a cup of coffee.
Just to have a grandparent.
Just to have a grandparent. I tell kids all the time, God, I hope you don't take your grandparents for granted. I
Oh,
hope you
my
tell them that you
God.
love them. I would love to do something like
I
that.
always hated the fact that I didn't have grandparents. That was so important to me. And that's
Right.
why my grandkids are so important to me.
Right.
There's nothing, I'm selectively cheap.
And
I
you're
won't buy
important-
something for
and
myself.
you're
but-
important to them.
Yes, very.
That's the thing,
Yes.
because we didn't have that. They didn't have that opportunity to know us.
Right. Exactly.
They didn't know us. They had no
I
clue
know. But so they didn't miss us then.
if their kids were going to survive or
They
not.
didn't miss us because they didn't know us.
I know that my grandparents, I never thought about this, but when they were killed, when they were walked into the ditch in the shtetl over there, outside the shtetl in the forest, they marched them 2
Poland
miles.
or Ukraine?
What is now Ukraine.
Ukraine, of course.
I'm thinking
it started there.
Right, and they probably were thinking about my dad.
I'm sure.
I never thought about that, but they were probably, before they got shot, they probably were saying, God,
Göth and you.
I hope that he survives
Yeah.
this and he tells this story. But they had no idea where
They
he
had no
was because they
idea.
knew that he was gone. Because my grandfather told my dad to go watch a cow, and the farmer told him to run to the forest. So I don't think that they knew that he ran to the forest.
Right.
They probably don't even know if he survived or not. They probably had
course
no
not.
idea.
Right.
I never thought about that.
Yeah.
We can go on forever.
Forever. I know.
It's
But-
just a joy to know you and to
and
call you a friend.
Thank you. I feel the same way.
Thank
and thank
you.
you so much for this opportunity.
This was great.
And one day I want to show you some photos I have on my phone. Of
I would
old
love to.
photos.
I would love to.
So now, is this over?
It's
You're gonna
not
edit
over.
it, right?
No, it's not over yet.
So-
I have to close it.
You have to close
Yeah,
it.
I'll show you how it's done officially.
Okay.
And then we can have like a sidebar discussion.
Sidebar.
As they
Yes,
call it.
in court. A sidebar.
So I thank you for joining us, Terry and
Thank
Terry
you.
Kaplan. And I'd like to thank all those that eavesdropped in our conversation today on HMTV here at the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center. I'm your host, Bernie Furshpan, of our wonderful series, Raised by Survivors. Until next time, please stay well.